A very good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us at ABP Ananda Presents Languages Week, powered by Colors Marathi. Languages Week is a series of discussion through which we want to capture the wonder of India's language media. It will also touch upon the diversity of India's consumer markets. To begin with, I'd like to thank our sponsors, presenting partner ABP Ananda, powered by partner Colors Marathi. Now introducing you to the moderator of the session, Ms. Ashwini Gangal, Executive Editor at afaqs. Once again, thank you everyone for joining. Before we start, can we please have the AV?
A pandemic couldn't stop us from bringing you the news. A lockdown couldn't contain us from bringing you the updates. Nature's fury couldn't stop us from bringing you the actual picture of severity and sufferings. The gloom around couldn't hold us up when it comes to bringing you how the human race is fighting back. We are the ones to initiate that learning doesn't come to a standstill. No wonder we have emerged as the #1 channel, not just in our category, but across all the genres. ABP Ananda, the #1 channel that stays ahead and keeps you ahead.
Thank you. Over to you, Ashwini.
Okay, thank you, Abhinav. Thank you. Okay, hi everybody. Warm welcome to all my panelists once again. Hi audience. So welcome to the 4th webinar of Languages Week. So the idea is to explore the power of local languages across mass media and to also highlight the problems that need fixing in this context. All right. So today our topic for discussion is content discovery. Arguably, we are sitting in an era of too much content. Okay, so availability is not the problem. Let's discuss targeting. That's what we're here to discuss. Now, those of you in the audience who've been with us since the beginning of the week, you'll have a bit of a context. But for those of you who are joining us for the first time today, hi, and I'd like to just quickly recap the discussions that we've had so far. So on Monday, we discussed how the ad rates vary from state to state across language media. On Tuesday, we discussed the resilience of local print media. Yesterday, we had an interesting discussion around regional dramas on television. And tomorrow, we have a good discussion around the role of voice in the context of regional media. Now, flanked by all these subjects, we're sitting today, Thursday, we're sitting to discuss content discovery in the context of technology and design. And of course, it's all about local languages. So we may not say that over and over again, but that's the theme. It's all about local languages. And it's a very multi-layered, complex world, pretty much. It's a content lasagna, as I like to call it, because we've got so many layers. So I'll just tell you why I call it that. We've got the first layer, which is the types of content. So you've got different types. You've got movies, TV shows, music, web series. That's the type. Add to that the second layer of genres. So you've got comedy, you've got thrillers, you've got those genres actually with a pure sense of the word genre. The third layer would be the platforms. So there's TV, YouTube, the apps, OTT. That's the third layer. And of course, the all-important layer, which is why we're here, languages. So you superimpose languages, different Indian languages on top of this lasagna, and we've got different permutations and combinations. So it's quite complicated. People are hungry. And we're here to talk about whether we're doing enough to lead them to the right content, the stuff that they're looking for, and even the stuff they're not necessarily actively looking for, but the stuff they're likely to enjoy anyway. So are we playing our part to bridge the gap over there? So before I open it up and call for opening remarks, I'll just quickly introduce my panelists one by one. We've got Kranti, Chief Operating Officer of Shimaru Entertainment. Welcome, Kranti. We've got Rohit. Now, Rohit heads product, growth, digital marketing, all three, for Woot and Woot Kids. Hi, Rohit. And we've got with us Anup. Anup heads digital technology for Asianet News and Entertainment. So all three of you, it's such a brilliant, strong panel, and I couldn't think of better people to discuss this subject with. So let's begin And why don't each of you take maybe 2 or 3 minutes each? And I'll tell you what I want you to tell me and the audience for the opening remarks that you're about to make. Tell me, so tell me what languages does your product touch? Languages it covers, the layers we discussed earlier, basically, the genres that define it, your product, and the platforms you're present across. So that can be your opening remark. So we get a sense of where you've got your presence. We'll start with you, Kranti.
Yeah, thanks, Ashwini, and a big thanks to the AFAX team for having me here. Shamaru, as everybody knows, is a very mass Bollywood brand, and that's what we're really, really known for. But in terms of genres and languages is something that Shamaru has been working on very, very actively for over a decade now. So in terms of genres, that entertainment, Bollywood is our main genre, but other than that, we have devotional, kids, comedy, as other strong genres. And in terms of languages, we have, other than Hindi, of course, which we have other languages like, can you hear me?
There's a slight glitch in the audio, but I can hear you.
Yeah, sure. So the other languages we have are, I mean, we're very, very strong in Gujarati, Marathi. I would say Punjabi we are not as strong, but we've been present for a long time, and a bit of Bengali. These are the 4 languages that we operate in. In fact, I want to say that, add one more layer to your lasagna, which is the consumer. And when you add the consumer to the layer, it gets way, way more complex because it depends on the demographic and psychographic profile of that consumer. So it's not only the tastes, but it's also the adaptability, exposure to tech, the kind of, phone or internet, etc., all of that. So, so it's I would say a very, very varied buffet when, it comes to the whole piece of content and consumer. And at Shamaru, we have actually, about 4 years back, implemented a very strong structural change within the organization to give emphasis to genres and languages beyond Hindi Bollywood. And I think our OTT platform is a reflection of that in terms of the way it's built, as well as the strengths that we bring out in each of these. We don't do anything in isolation, not a single genre or language is done only because of the OTT platform. We're actually invested in that genre or that language across, platforms, media, across formats, etc. And I think that's what probably helps us understand the consumer better to, even on the OTT, bring him the best possible offering, target the best possible content to each kind of consumer. And even in my conversation, I will actually later on when we, speak, I'll explain to you how we have divided the content across platforms, across AVOD and SVOD to maximize consumer satisfaction as well as monetization. So I'll come to that later.
Yeah, and I have a lot of questions for you, Kranti. Yeah, I'll also get back to you. Rohit, why don't you go next? Just talk about the languages, the content touches, the platforms it's on, and the genres that define it.
Sure. Apart from English and Hindi, Woot has 7 other languages. They are Bengali, Marathi, Gujarati, Kannada, and Tamil, Telugu, and Tulu.
Right.
So, yep, that's where we are.
Okay. In terms of genres, I mean, I know there's so many, and even the types of content, but just run us through like the basics. What all do you have? Because that'll have a lot of bearing on what I'm going to ask you next.
Sure.
Yeah.
So Woot, as you know, is part of Viacom 18, which owns Colors and the Colors bouquet of channels. So a lot of our content is tentpole properties from the Colors family, the big bosses of the world, and even outside of Colors and MTV, say Roadies and Khatron Ke Khiladi and those kind of shows. So there is a bunch of catch-up TV shows we have. There is Woot Select, which is our premium subscription offering, which produces Woot originals. And we are expanding in new areas as well, such as sports. So, we did premier football competition, we did a cricket competition recently. And so, yes, we are now expanding into other genres. We, of course, have access to news from the Network 18 stable.
That's right.
So, but we are mostly well known for fictional long form entertainment content, not so much for, say, live sports or news or other subgenres.
Correct. Thank you, Rohit. Great. Anup, why don't you come in here and walk us through the languages that are that come under your purview?
Yeah, thanks, Ashini. So, Asianet News being very south focused in very early days. It is started from Malayalam, then we have a presence in Kannada. Then, especially, it was a broadcast channel initially, and digital was part of the broadcast system. Later, we established as a digital entity. Then we started to grow from south to the northward. So then we started in Tamil, then to Telugu, Bangla, then Hindi, and multiple brands also we've been launched in the digital space. And we seen the earlier itself the power of regional specifically, because where the market need to be explored, and there was a very it's very we can build a traction on that audience. And earlier it was only to the prime cities where the digital being focused, and we started quite earlier to focus on the regional side. And the content, if you ask specifically to the content and segments in the websites, it is region to region, it is really different. It is not the same practice which we are putting on Malayalam. It won't work on Kannada, it won't work on Tamil, it won't work on Telugu. So it is very specific to the audience. And as Kranti earlier mentioned, when you see from the consumer perspective, it is getting more complicated, and there are many technology supports which we used to find what is right and what is wrong, and how we need to optimize those patterns. And it is if you see very early days, it was very focused on the internal websites, right? So where we see only we will have a mobile website, or a desktop website, or a mobile web format, and mobile applications will be there. Nowadays, it is more towards where this discovery of content actually matters. We need to have this multi-channel or a multi-platform presence, where we see the social media aggregators, affiliators, everyone plays a very good role in the discovery of content. When specifically with respect to news, it is not bounded to a specific genre. It can be anything. It can be viral videos, it can be art, culture, current affairs, anything will come into the picture. And maintaining the quality whenever we have multiple genres, that is also being very challenging in that. It was one of the challenges majorly we see. And it is, as you mentioned in the opening remarks, it is not just about the volume. Volumes can be created because we don't have any space limitation like newspapers have, and where the baseline video or the linear medium has time limitation, where digital doesn't have any of this. You can have enormous of content. And only the thing is that what actually the customer is or consumer is looking for, and we should be able to deliver it properly. And in terms of the platforms also, so if you see earlier we were focused much more on the desktop engaging audience. Now it is 90-95% of engagement is moving towards mobile. So that is where we need to focus much on the designs and how we need to push the content in what relevant format.
Yeah. Great. Yeah, I will come back to you. I have a lot of questions specific to the website distribution stuff. But before I ask you questions that are relevant because you come from where you do, I want all of you to answer this one question. How are you slicing this discovery pie? Okay, so tell me if I'm on the right track, because I have this theory that it's basically one of two things that comprises discovery, both put together actually. There's distribution, there's the whole aggregators, the whole marketing, the collaboration piece of the puzzle, the discovery puzzle. And maybe Kranti can come in here because, you have Shimaru has a tie-up with Woot. It has a content tie-up with Book My Show, which is ticketing. Shimaru also has a tie-up with ShopClues, and that's e-commerce, where you can buy Shimaru's subscription packs on ShopClues' app. And if I'm right, that's actually specifically skewed towards Gujarati and Hindi, Marathi content. So it is like a regional language push. So there's this whole distribution piece of the pie. And with even with the machinery and vehicles we have for this distribution, with telco, you have your hybrid set-top boxes with Airtel Extreme and the Tata Sky Binge Pluses that are coming in, the Geo Promise, which is broadband, as one more distribution vehicle, and the OEMs with pre-installed apps. So that's the entire distribution piece. And the second perhaps begins where the first one ends, which is the algorithm and the content recommendation engine. That once I've come onto the platform, this second machinery of discovery kicks in and throws stuff at me depending on my preferences. So is that necessarily the correct and only way to slice this discovery pie: distribution, aggregation, and algorithms and search engine recommendations? Or is there any other way? So Kranti, why don't you lead? And I do want to know what Anoop and Rohit have to say in response to this as well.
So I would say the only third part to distribution and recommendation on the website is about creating a word of mouth or marketing piece. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Actually? Yeah. Okay. I would say so bang on distribution and the tech that you have on your platform to help discovery are two very big pieces of the puzzle. Yeah. But I would say the third is
I lost you there. When you said third, after that, all gone.
Yeah, but I'd say the third piece over there to the puzzle is the entire, I would say, influence on the consumer, whether it's paid marketing, word of mouth, influencers, whatever way you can get other touch points outside of your platform, which also kind of, drive an affinity or curiosity around your content. So distribution definitely is very, very, very critical. And Shemaru has gone, I would say the first year, literally the only thing we were measuring was distribution. So distribution is a must. The second important thing, especially for regional, is the tech part. Because what can happen is that, the consumer, in a place where that particular language is probably not more than 10 or 15% of the content present on the platform, can easily feel alienated or lost or feel dissatisfied if the tech piece is not in place fully. So to show to show select content or content which the consumer is most likely to appreciate or like is very, very important. And it's very easy for the consumer to otherwise feel lost in the ocean. And, as I think Anoop also mentioned, it's the problem of plenty. It's not about numbers. It's about, just putting the right stuff in front of the right person to make him feel satisfied. Right. So the Indian consumer always believes in paisa vasool. So to feel paisa vasool, how much of relevant content should he or she see, and how do I get that content in front of that consumer? The other issue I would say in regional is also that, the supply of quality content, and especially I would say this problem is a lot more in probably Gujarati and Marathi compared to the South languages, is because the film industries and creative industries are still nascent. They're not that developed. They're not, I would say, at par with the Southern film industry or creative creation machinery. So the pieces of quality content available are limited. So I would say Shemaru literally owns for Gujarati more than 50-60% of the quality content that's out there. But yet it amounts to just some 450 pieces of content. Now, how do you keep the consumer engaged with this much content? How do you keep building relevance back to a great piece of content which was released 5 years back? So, it's not necessary that I have to show the consumer only what is new, There can be a great movie, but it was released some time back and the consumer may still have not seen it. So how do I put it in front of the consumer and how can I attract him to watch it today? So the whole piece around that, I feel in regional is also very important. And I think it goes multi-platform in terms of engaging with the consumer and using multiple layers of influence, right from the stars that are there, other talent that is there, other media like say RJs or those kind of things, newspapers. So create multiple touch points for the consumer to even discover older content.
Okay.
Is, I feel, very important in languages which are not, having that huge a bank of content for the consumer to dip into.
Okay. Interesting. So you basically added a third pillar. So there's distribution, there's marketing, and then there's the algorithm and recommendation
Yes.
engine.
Yes.
Great. Rohit, do you agree with Kranti? And how do you slice this whole distribution pie, discovery pie rather?
Sure, it's a good question. I'll limit my answer and like you mentioned, content has a wide meaning. Content ranges from text to video to premium to UGC to professionally produced and so on.
Yeah.
So content is a very wide spectrum. I'm only going to limit my views to the slice of the spectrum that we in Woot operate in, which is primarily video, fiction, professionally produced, long form, digitally consumed content for India and Bharat. So, and discovery also has many meanings in my worldview. Discovery starts when you have the viewer's attention. Getting more viewers and getting the more attention from existing viewers is not discovery. And discovery ends with the content universe you have. Like, you only have that much content and you can only play within that. So to answer your question, like you said, content has a wide kind of, let's say, horizontal spectrum. Discovery also, in my view, operates in a bit of a vertical pyramid. I'm gonna kind of, if you switch to speaker mode, you're gonna see my screen or in my video. So this pyramid is this pyramid is what I think of when I think of discovery. And I think just like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, there is a hierarchy here, and most people in my business in OTT get enamored by sexy problems like machine learning recommendation and whatnot. But in my view, you have to solve some basic problems first before you can shoot for the peak of the pyramid. The pyramid is a lot more nuanced if you come and see it from our trenches, but I've just simplified it for the sake of the wide diversity of users, audience we have here. So, so the bottom layer is what the viewer is actively telling you and asking for that content aloud, right? So when someone searches for my show on Google, right, I have got to be visible for them. This is also discovery. When and in any language, if they search for it in English or in Kannada, there should be a way for them to view my content in one click. There is sport content which also has this kind of visibility outside of your network. Now within your network, of course, your search needs to work. And for example, this is one area where we are, it's a room for improvement for us in Woot. So if somebody searches for my show in the language that it was produced, in this case, I'm looking for Kannada in Kannada language, I don't show them any results. So when I've not fixed the basic layer, the user is stating their intent that I want to view this show, and I can't even meet that, I shouldn't be thinking about
your audio is gone.
Implied interests and behavior targeting and so on that soon. The next layer is the explicit behavior, right? So the user, when they join Woot and other places, they tell us that they want this language. When they look at a browse content, like this is from Netflix, of course, the user's telling you that they want to view this kind of content. Let's say a viewer has finished episode 3 of a show. Now, it makes sense to show her episode 4 on your own. She left episode 3 midway, so perhaps you should recommend completing that episode. But she kept skipping through episode 3 and she reached the 20-minute mark in 7 minutes. Should you still recommend episode 3 when she opens Woot again? I don't know. Also the context, right? Like if she has opened Woot on her TV screen at 8 p.m., she is likely, looking for long form content at that time, right? That's like family viewing content. But if she's on her mobile and if she's on 4G, and if her mobile is moving and she has opened the app at 9:15 a.m., she is likely on her commute to work and would probably not look for a 2-hour movie at that time, right? If a 22-year-old boy has fired the app at 11:45 p.m. on his mobile, perhaps he's more open to edgy content than when he launches Woot on his TV at 9 p.m., which could be more a family viewing time. So this kind of this kind of recommendation doesn't really require sexy machine learning. All you need is loads of empathy for the user, deep understanding of the consumer context, the ability to execute a bunch of if this then that instructions, and the humility to learn from experiments and iterate. The topmost here is where all that chatter is about, which is of course implicit behavior, which is implicit interest. So there is the question of machine learning. What tray should we show first? Within the tray, what title should we show first? Within the title, what image should we show first? That leads to more views and so on. So for me, we are only scratching the surface with discovery, and I think we are paying too much attention to the top layer before we solve the bottom layers.
No, Rohit, I agree. We're scratching the surface. I'll take it from there because that was anyway one of my questions. Are we guilty of oversimplifying the language consumer? What I mean by that is, I was talking to someone the other day and she said she watched something in Telugu which was very intense. It was like a horror show on one of the OTT platforms. And just by virtue of it being Telugu, she was then thrown a lot of Telugu stuff, whether it was comedy, whether it was romance, didn't matter, genre regardless. So, are we oversimplifying the language consumer, and are we treating language like a genre? So maybe we're still in that stage and we're still there on the continuum, and we're yet to become mature as a recommendation, as makers of recommendation engines, and maybe become more nuanced about it. Are we guilty of that? Hand on heart, Kranti, Anup, Rohit, all of you.
Yeah. So Kranti and Rohit mentioned two aspects. Kranti focused on the retention side, and Rohit talk about the algorithmic recommendation side. So when we say, and one more portion with Rohit mentioned regarding the discovery piece, how it is happening on the funnel. So, so customer retention is very much valid, because once you give a discoverability, so especially in the news media, when we did this regional expansion from south to the north side. So the Asianet News as a brand, which is very well-known brand, and we need to see that we also started in this particular language. So there we need to start the funnel from the awareness, not from the discovery, where we started the first step as the awareness, where we associated with the multiple partners and everything. So even if you see the very early stage, it was where the department itself is called just digital marketing. It is now, then it is moved to social media marketing as a submodule, then again into the partnership management, because everything is required right now, because especially in the new scenario, because you are expanding your horizons to everything, because now you have many platforms which need to be managed. Even each platform has their own discoverability algorithms. The logic which works on the social Facebook, which is not on the Instagram, which is not on the Twitter. Even the same type of content is not performing in any of this platform. Even when it comes to our own internal platform, also the engagement patterns are very different. So it is something when it comes to specifically to the news, the focusing the platforms and how we need to make the content discoverable, it is slightly challenging. Even we need to very closely work with the editorial team, saying that this is how our current system is there, and this is how the traffic which is coming. And
I can't hear you. Is it just me?
Hello?
Yeah, I heard the hello.
Yeah.
Please go
So
on.
it is not just on the technology piece where we are not able to solve the problem. We will very closely work with editorial to say that this is the type of engagement we are getting on each different platforms. Right. And this is how it is. So they are the content producers, right? So they need to be aware of how their content is being consumed and reflected actually on each platform. When it comes to specifically to the algorithm, so where even I have the same experience which Rohit mentioned, when my wife uses my Netflix account to see the Korean. After that, everything is the Korean episodes are started to populate, and where Netflix has a huge repository of Korean. Yeah. So this is something which is the language as a genre nowadays, recently that which has happened, which is where that more towards where this personalization, which works in news. Actually, when you have hyper local content, personalization and recommendation has a whole sense of huge meaning, where it can easily identify the person and recommend the stuff. And when your volume of data is increasing, the data points which is used to suggest the content also need to be increased into a equivalent way. But what happens is that there are certain priorities being set, according to that the algorithms will be recommended. So it is all about the algorithm, which one you choose and how you are able to get the audience using that algorithm.
Right. No, that's very interesting. Rohit, Kranti, are we guilty of being a little maybe immature or biased as makers of these recommendation engines? And are we still treating language, once we've identified that a user watches X language, X regional language, we just throw content regardless of the genre?
Kranti, we can't hear you.
Kranti, you're not audible. Yeah, maybe Rohit can start answering while we fix Kranti's audio.
Hang on, she's just switching on mic. Let's give her that. Kranti, can you unmute yourself?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay. Sorry. So what I was saying is that I think, there is on OTT platforms, this is true not only about languages, but about all genres. If you're somebody who watches crime and thriller, you'll keep getting thrown that content. It's not that that's the only content that you like. So I do agree that overall the recommendation or watch next, etc., there's a lot of work to be done over there. And therefore, I in fact strongly believe that offline discovery and, offline getting the consumer familiarized with content in terms of what is there, is going to play a very, very big role, especially as we go down to outside the early adopters. So we have the early adopters on our platforms right now who are very savvy, who are open to watching shows in Spanish with subtitles. But as our bases increase and we're staple, and where the larger public is coming to us for more than just catch up, and using us deeply, we'll have to improve ourselves and learn that consumer, because that consumer is very wary of going ahead and watching something they are not familiar with, they've not heard of. So we'll have to get into their ecosystems and reach out to them through other ways and familiarize ourselves. See, the challenge about OTT content is that if you see on a GEC, okay, a show goes on for 2 years, 3 years, and you build loyalty and you have consumers coming back. On OTT, you have a show which lasts 13 episodes at best, or so every time you have to build a new brand and get the consumer to sample your content. So the discovery piece, I feel, is going to be way wider to solve than just the tech piece and design piece on OTTs.
Very interesting. Right, absolutely. Yeah. Rohit, your response to the earlier question, and also maybe you can take a question from the audience here, that when it comes to content discovery, what role do dubs and subs play? That's dubbed and subtitled content versus original local language content. That's a good question.
Sure. Aishwarya, there's a segment of users who very much like dubs and subs, and there is a segment of users who just can't stand the sight of a dub movie or a sub, or who just can't stand subtitles. So first and foremost, networks and services like us should know how to segment users and discover which type of user there is, which type of user the current subject user is, and if they do prefer subs and dubs, it's very to answer your question, it plays a very important role, because this audience, this segment is keen to explore an Arabic show dubbed in Hindi, or Tamil show dubbed in English or whatever, and with subs as well. So yeah, it's about picking horses for courses and segmenting the user, and then you know, recommending subs and dubs content to that user, not just throwing everything on all you have on, like, if you make a product for everyone, you make it for no one, right? So you need to personalize it to the user.
Right.
So they play an important role, but for a segment of the user.
Right. Right. Okay. Anup, I have a question for you. Actually, I want to understand, what do you optimize for? Because you look at a lot of language sites, right? So that's one. What exactly are you optimizing for? Is it personalization? Images? Is it the font? What is the problem area there? And secondly, I want to understand if the challenge for you changes language to language. Is there a pattern there? Which is the toughest language on your plate?
Very interesting question, and it is not easy to answer as well. See, because the point, see, when we come to the optimization, it is completely on the objective and goals what we are setting up. So suppose and again, it is on multi-platform level. We need to see what actually our objective is. So when we see the even Google has very much importance when it comes to the news media, where they drive many of the traffic, right? When they recommend many of the user searches on it, and then it comes to that. So we need to have that new formats like AMP, PWA. These kind of steps are very much required for a news website right now, nowadays. Earlier, if you take 3 years back or 2 years back, which is not required, and because the digital is actually evolving. And I've been here for more than 8 years, and when Asianet has 1 million to this 1 billion recently we clocked, so that growth which is seen, and every year to year the revisions been happen, and the revisions been happen in technology transformation and obviously the business growth. So both we did the business expansion and transformation into the technology. If you see, we integrated multiple components into the system, and we experimented. Sort of them are failure, but sort of them are very pretty much successful aspect. So this is not a one way to answer that. Okay, this is the method which we are approaching, and it is getting done. Tomorrow, when I have another set of things which is being released in the market, I should adopt it. According to that, I need to optimize, and it is not. But okay, as the current trend which we've seen is that many people are which is engaging on the video and image type of news, which is giving more traction. Might be because of people are more into that video consumption patterns are increased, so they are more showing one affinity, and many people are, and the reading patterns also being changed, which we see in certain genres. So this is there is no one answer to it. And even if you see the how the topics are getting trending, we seen the news has been published 2-3 months back, even being trending one day suddenly, and you don't know what is the specific reason to get the people to traction to that particular news. So this is because of someone's some platform has a algorithm which is recommended to a certain set of users, and it become trending. So it is not a well-defined answer. This is the way we can optimize our platform. This is the way we can improve our content discovery. But there are certain best practices which each platform says, and we can adopt it. That is only the thing. And according to that, and it doesn't, and again, it doesn't mean that it will work across the languages, where we see that difference also. It is not the way how we did in Malayalam. It is not in the English.
Exactly.
So that is also there. So there is no one single line or equation, or there is no. But if you see the holistic approach, what industry is doing, that is only one word, which is personalization and recommendation.
Yeah. In fact, a few weeks ago, I moderated a panel at a similar, all-week event of ours, and that was specifically for web publishing, Anup. And I had the CTO of Indian Express, Amardeep, on the panel, and he said something very interesting when I asked him what he would want to fix magically if he could, about the ecosystem. And he said, there's no global template. By global, he meant across languages when it comes to the tech rollout. And things are still done in a very language specific way. And he wished that away. I mean, he wished he could sort of, do away with that. So do you agree? And can we extend the same wish to maybe OTT? So Kranti Rohit can also answer that. Is that something we can fix? Where the rollouts of features happen in a language specific way rather than uniformly across. So, Anup, first of all, do you agree with Amardeep's view there? Because
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. So yes. Amadev's view is totally correct.
right. Okay.
There is no single solution for everything. Even we have, okay. So when you see the AMP and instant article layouts, what is actually the design? It doesn't have much design. It has some colors and some alignments, and it gives all the prominence to the content where the user is exactly looking for. So that is where it is. So certain discussions are sometimes it ends without any proper answers, because it is not because of it doesn't have any answers, because at the context somewhere we are trying to conclude it. That's it. So it can change in the very next day, because something will come up and actually the definitions can be changed. So that is how it is. But that's right. Even in the current trend, something which is everyone is trying to write a perfect algorithm where they can have where they can give the user best experience on the content. And even we tried one more thing is that same contextual content in multiple formats like images, videos, and text, and how the user is responding on it. And again, the experience was very different. Like the response was very unpredictable, because the reason it performed in different platforms in a different way. And so it is all about how you experiment and how the experimental ideas you generate. And for the time being, at least for that to a time frame, you can continue with that. But again, another something which comes up, even one thing which we observed is that when Facebook changes their algorithm once, suddenly our traffic is started to dip. And Facebook also recognized that there is something which has happened and it was not right, and they corrected, even traffic came back in certain ways. So this is happening in one focus on our system. So similar way, each mediums we monitor and we find how the patterns are getting changed and how the improvement we need to be done. And where we are trying to do one more thing is that it is we are not actually completely dependent on this other aggregators and affiliators. That is actually a value add to the existing systems where we acquire more or new audience. So why I specifically said that there can be users with WhatsApp. There are users without the same user set which don't have a Facebook. So for us, these set of few people who use the WhatsApp is actually new users. And the same way we explored many platforms where we found there are unique set of users which are there in the specific to the platforms. And we try to retain them with the strategies belongs to that platforms as well. So it is, so obviously internally to the platform, we have full control on it. But when it goes to the outside our hands, then we need to be specifically on the strategy.
That's also a big part of the whole discovery thing. So, just we are running out of time, but I want Kranti Rohit to come in because I wanted to conclude this discussion on the note of serendipity. That's the first thing, frankly, that I thought of when I got this, when the panel was assigned and I said, oh, I have to do a panel on discovery. I said, on the one hand, yes, there is a gap and we have to work harder at getting it right. But on the other, are we overdoing it? Are we over recommending? And is there very little room to discover? Because we are a searching kind of audience, right? With TV, we search and we look for stuff and we find it. But here, before you can even get there, you're recommended something. So are we overdoing it, and are we losing serendipity in the whole fight for discovery?
So I actually believe that I agree that serendipity is good, but I still don't think our audiences are that mature to navigate, and discover on their own something that they're not that familiar with. Because finally people are investing their time, and and many a times people are hesitant to try something that they have not heard of before. So there is definitely an element of search which is driven by, I would say, word of mouth and overall buzz about a certain piece of content. For sure. But I would say if the content is in the media, in the news, and there is a buzz, mostly you're going to be recommending it in the top three. So
It's true.
Also, a lot of our recommendations are also, driven by how many people are watching that piece of content on your platform at that point in time or in that period. So automatically something which is, getting trending in the actual outside world finds its way into some of your top trays, to get recommended to more and more people. So I would, I mean, but I do agree with you, because otherwise it doesn't allow people to just, stumble upon new genres and, newer, staple outside of their staple. And the last thing you want is for a consumer to be boxed in with just one genre or two genres. So,
absolutely. Yeah. Rohit, last words on serendipity, and then we can end it. You're on mute, Rohit. Sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry, that's a classic blunder. If you meant serendipity in the Google I'm feeling lucky button sense of the way, I'm not sure what percent of our audience is looking for that kind of serendipity. But if you, so for example, I like this angle that, this one, Prime Video is trying, right? They ask you to choose your moods, not, so if you're in the mood to see a, if you're feeling forlorn, or if you just want to, if you want to see Dimag Dhar Pe Rakh Kya Hai content, then they recommend a cross genre, kind of collection to you. So I would go for serendipity in these ways rather than a very random, sudden stumbling of on the content. So yeah, important.
That's interesting. Yeah, and that's a new way to define serendipity. Yeah, great. That's all we have time for, I'm afraid. Thank you very much, panelists. Thanks a lot. Thank you, audience. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much, Ashwini. Thanks.
Thank you.